Raftus and Rufus are missing. The bears down under at Arktos-By-The-Sea gather together every New Year's Eve to celebrate the year gone by and to wish everyone good health and happy times for the coming year. This year was going to be extra special. Professor Piaget, PJ for short, was to be a special guest, and all the bears were looking forward to seeing her. At 4 p.m, Tommy and Tina Twinkle, the Arktos timekeepers, rang the bells to tell the bears it was time to gather on the village circle. PJ was already there. She didn't want to be late for her first New Year's Eve with the bears down under. Kirsty Keykeep arrived next and sat down to talk to PJ. Eli, Edit and Liberty were laughing when they arrived, just as Sadie Special and Sam Something hurried around the corner of the track that joined the village circle. Zack Zitherbear had met Golly Gosh as she was leaving her shop. Golly Gosh had 2 baskets of goodies that Connie Candy had made for the bears to eat, and Zack had quickly taken one of the heavy baskets to help Golly. More bears kept arriving. Vanessa de Vinay, the Arktos reporter, was just ahead of Officer Oscar, the police bear, who started marking off names from his long list. Officer Oscar was doing a final check. Where were Raftus and Rufus? Officer Oscar blew loudly on his police whistle. Has anyone seen Raftus and Rufus? He yelled. They were supposed to be here before 4 p.m. Nobody had seen or heard from Raftus and Rufus. The bears started talking among themselves, trying to work out where the little toughs might be. I'll go and check their treehouse and cubbyhole, said Sam. Eli, will you come with me, please, in case I need help? Sam and Eli hurried away to look for Raftus and Rufus. I hope they're okay, whispered Liberty. They do get into mischief sometimes, but we do all love them very much. Suddenly, Zack had an idea. Raftus and Rufus sometimes go to Old Bear's barn. I wonder if we should check there. That sounds like a possible place, said Officer Oscar. Come on, Zack, you know the quickest way. Let's have a look in Old Bear's barn. The rest of the bears were now quite worried. Raftus and Rufus might be toughs, but they were only little bears, and soon it would be getting dark. Some of the bears started calling out as loudly as they could, Raftus! Rufus, where are you? Other bears called out, Cooey! Cooey originated from the Darug language of Aboriginal Australians. It means come here and is widely used in Australia as a call over distances. Meanwhile, Raftus and Rufus were in a real fix. Early that morning, they sat inside their cubbyhole talking about the party later in the day and how PJ was going to be there. Hey, Raftus, said Rufus, why don't we try to find something to wrap up and give to PJ for a special present? She's really very nice, isn't she? And she did give us a terrific Halloween treat. What a good idea, Rufus, replied Raftus. But where can we find something she might like? We spent all our Gunu pocket money. Well, said Rufus slowly, we have found a few interesting things in Old Bear's barn. How about we go there now and have a look? If we can't find anything, we'll still have time to go somewhere else." "Okay," replied Raftus. "I'll go and get a bag to hide what we might find. We want it to be a surprise, and we don't want to show it to anyone we might meet on the way." It was nearly lunchtime when the little bears finally arrived at Old Bear's barn. The door to the barn was banging back and forth in the wind. Whenever Raftus and Rufus had visited Old Bear's barn in the past, the door had only been open a tiny bit, and they had to hold their breath and then squeeze through the gap in the doorway. Today, they could just walk in. Once inside, they had to wait a while for their little eyes to become adjusted to the dim light. "Where will we look first?" asked Rufus. "We could check out that big brown box that Zack fell into," replied Raftus. "There were all sorts of things in there. We could make sure we had enough boxes to climb up on and throw lots of boxes inside to make sure we could get out again. We don't want to get stuck like Zack did. Come on, Rufus, let's do that first." It took quite a while for the little bears to drag lots of boxes to make it safe to climb in and out of the big brown box. Rufus went first, and Raftus climbed up and over behind him. There were lots of things in the box. It was quite hard to see at first, but gradually their eyes could make out several things that might be an interesting present for PJ. "Look at this, Raftus," whispered Rufus. "I think PJ would like it." Rufus held up a tiny brass bell. He moved it back and forth and it made a loud tinkling sound. "I think that's perfect for a present," said Raftus. "If PJ carried it with her and if she got lost, she could ring the bell and someone would hear it and go and help her. Let's go home now and wrap it up in some special paper." Carefully the little bears climbed out of the big brown box and walked over to the barn door. "Oh no!" cried Rufus. "The barn door is shut and there isn't a handle on the inside to open it. Oh no, we're stuck." "Oh no!" cried Raftus. "This is not very funny. We could try calling out and banging on the door. Someone might hear us." Bang, 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 bang went their little fists on the door. "Help!" they yelled as loudly as they could. Time and time again they banged and called out, but nobody came. "I'm hungry," said Rufus. "I brought some lollies in the bag. We'll eat those, then have a rest." "We're going to miss the New Year's Eve party," sighed Raftus. Raftus and Rufus must have fallen asleep, because when they woke up, the sun was going down. They had been stuck in the barn for hours and hours. They started calling out again. Officer Oscar and Zack had run as fast as they could and were now close to Old Bear's barn. "Did you hear that?" cried Officer Oscar. "Listen, Zack." They listened, and faintly they heard two little voices. "Help! Help! We're stuck! Help! Help!" "It's them all right," yelled Zack. "I wonder what's happened." Soon Officer Oscar and Zack were outside the barn door and could clearly hear Raftus and Rufus almost crying inside. "It's okay, Raftus and Rufus, we're here to get you out," shouted Officer Oscar. Zack lifted the latch outside the door and pushed it open. Raftus and Rufus jumped up and down in excitement. They were so pleased to be rescued. Thank you, they both said at the same time. We can go to the party after all. I think we'd better carry you, said Officer Oscar. Here, Rufus, grab your little bag and climb up on my shoulder. And Raftus, Zac will carry you. Up you go. They did look funny hurrying along the track to the village circle. Sam and Eli met them on the way back and were very relieved to see Officer Oscar and Zac had found Raftus and Rufus. Hooray! Hooray! Shouted all the bears when they saw Raftus and Rufus high up on the shoulders of Officer Oscar and Zac. Let's start the party! There's lots to eat! Everyone had a wonderful time, and PJ was made to feel very important, being offered special treats to eat and chatting to the bears she had already met. There were lots of bears PJ didn't know, and she was looking forward to finding out about them and meeting them personally next year. There were 2 very large bears. PJ wondered who they were. They must be very important, she thought. I must ask Vanessa who they are. As she looked around, she could see some big bears, medium bears, and smaller bears, but Raftus and Rufus were the only really little bears. Suddenly, Raftus and Rufus remembered the brass bell they had found. It wasn't wrapped up, but that didn't matter. Raftus got the bell out of their little bag and hid it behind his back. Then they crept up to where PJ was talking to Vanessa. We've got a present for you, PJ, said Rufus excitedly. Raftus gave the little brass bell to PJ and said, We thought you'd like to have this to keep you safe. You could ring it if you get lost, and then we can find you. What a very good idea, said PJ with a big smile and tears of joy in her eyes. I love my little bell. Thank you very much, Raftus and Rufus. It is a lovely present. Do you know what makes this present even better? It's having both of you and all the bears present here today. What could be more perfect than that? You've given me the perfect present. Just then, all the clocks at Arktos-By-The-Sea chimed 12 times. It was the end of one year and the start of a new year. Happy New Year, everyone, called out the bears to each other. What will we do tomorrow, Raftus? Asked Rufus as they walked home very slowly. They were very tired little bears. I'm going to sleep in, replied Raftus with a big yawn. But hey, in the afternoon we'll think of something, I'm sure we can. Happy New Year from the Bears Down Under to you. The end. Or is it just the beginning?